asked to describe the experience of raising a child with a disability and to try to help people who have not shared that unique experience to understand it and to imagine what it feels like. And here it is. When you're going to have a baby, it's like planning a fabulous vacation to Italy. You buy a bunch of guidebooks and you make wonderful plans. To the Colosseum, the Michelangelo David, the gondolas in Venice. You may learn some handy phrases in Italian. It's all just very exciting. After months of eager anticipation, the day finally arrives. You pack your bags and off you go. Several hours later, the plane lands. The stewardess comes in and says, "Welcome to Holland." Holland, you say? What do you mean Holland? I signed up for Italy. I'm supposed to be in Italy. All my life I've dreamed of going to Italy. But there's a change in the flight plan. They've landed in Holland, and there you must stay. The important thing is that they haven't taken you to a horrible, disgusting, filthy place full of pestilence, famine, and disease. It's just a different place. So you must go out and buy new guidebooks. You must learn a whole new language, and you will meet a whole new group of people you have never have met. It's just a different place. It's slower paced than Italy. It's less flashy than Italy. But after you've been there for a while, you catch your breath and you look around and you begin to notice that Holland has windmills, and Holland has tulips, and Holland even has Rembrandts. But everyone you know is busy coming and going from Italy, and they're all bragging about what a wonderful time that they had there. And for the rest of your life, you'll say, yes, that's where I was supposed to go. That's what I had planned. And the pain of that will never, ever, ever go away, because the loss of that dream is very, very significant. But if you spend your life mourning the fact that you didn't go to Italy, you may never be free to enjoy the very special, the very lovely things about Holland. And I say that because my Emily was the best thing I ever did. When we found out I was pregnant, they actually wanted me to terminate the pregnancy. And, my husband and I, it was our first child together, and we fought it. We said no. They said, well, she may have Down syndrome. I said, doesn't really matter. We want to have her. So originally they had diagnosed Emily in utero with an AV canal defect. The septal wall was gone. So 75% of AV canal defects are Down syndrome. The reason I know this is because as soon as I got that diagnosis, I went home and looked it up. I also called several doctors, and I did my research and was trying to find the best place for her. We ended up at Cincinnati Children's Hospital, and actually I gave birth at Good Samaritan. Then we ended up, within 48 hours, a duct had closed in her heart, causing her, she had a coarcted aorta, so she turned blue. She ended up in basically 911 and taking her to an ambulance to Cincinnati Children's Hospital. Then within 48 hours, she had her first surgery, and that was to repair a coarc. She still had the AV canal, but we were told originally that it would be 3 months for the repair. So they did the coarc, and then we went to the step-down unit. We were there good 3 months, and she wasn't getting any better. It wasn't getting any better. So, as a parent with a special needs child, and a new parent at that, I was very scared of the doctors. I didn't know what to ask. I didn't know what questions to ask. I didn't know what medications we were doing. I didn't know anything. All I knew was what I had been able to Google. I didn't know what the monitors meant, and it made me feel helpless, made me feel hopeless, and out of control. And that's all I wanted was control. I wanted to take care of my child like a normal parent would. I wanted to breastfeed. I wanted to hold my baby. I wanted all this. I wanted things to be as normal as possible, and they just weren't. 6 months we did this. 6 months she was in the hospital. They were like, we don't know what's wrong. We don't know what's wrong. Finally they did a heart cath, and that's when they diagnosed her with hypoplastic left heart syndrome. and the AV canal. So it's unbalanced. She had an unbalanced AV canal is what they called it, HLHS. And that's when the left side of your heart is smaller than the right. And the blue and the blue and the red blood are mixing. That's just one diagnosis. So, you know, we did the surgery, and thank goodness she made it. We ended up having her baptized right before the second surgery. And, you know, like I said, as a parent, you don't know where to go. And, you know, God loved the social workers who came in and tried to work with us and everything else. But it was almost like I was scared of them as well. You know, I wanted control. I wanted to be driving the bus. I wanted to take care of my child. I was very protective of my child, but still I felt like I was at the mercy of the doctor. So whatever they said, okay, you know, and I didn't ask a lot of questions. You know, moving on, it wasn't until, we'll say, December the 6th, 2006. My daughter was born July 18th, 2006. We were in and out of the hospital the whole time up until December the 6th, 2006. She had a G-tube put in about a month prior, 4 weeks. Well, it did come out accidentally. So we ended up taking her to the doctor. And the nurse at Dayton Children's Hospital had placed the G-tube incorrectly. Again, this is all new to me. I didn't know what was going on. But the nurse said, oh, easy fix, easy fix. We'll just stick it in and send you home. Well, she stuck it in, and she pushed Emily's stomach further back. So she screamed, you know, and of course I don't know anything. I just, you know, want to hold my baby, make her feel better. So we took her home, and I hooked her up to her feeds, her continuous feeds with her kangaroo pump. And it was less than 24 hours. She was screaming. There was formula coming out from under her G-tube. I called the home health nurse, and I said, you got to come over here right away. I don't know what's going on. Emily's screaming. She's turning yellow. She's very, very sick. Well, it turns out that the nurse had put the G-tube in incorrectly and almost killed her. She had, she got toxic. Her body was toxic because the formula had just been emptying into her abdominal cavity and not into her stomach. So we ended up having to rush her to Dayton Children's Hospital. $45,000 surgery later, you know, she's bloated. She's fighting for her life. And, you know, and I understand accidents happen, but that, I think, was the moment, the pivotal moment for me that I'm like, you know what? This isn't going to happen again. And as a parent, that's my child. And if you don't advocate for your child, nobody else will. And that's the moment that, you know, I started to ask more questions. I was getting, you know, I was doing more research. I was working with the doctors more and not just letting them tell me what was going on. I wanted to know why. Why is this going on? Why is this happening? What do the medications do? I learned how to read the monitors. I learned everything that I could to be able to take care of my daughter. And it was very, very important. You know, it was a long road with them. I mean, it was, and here's another thing, with being the parent of a special needs child, if it's not one thing, it's another thing. So as soon as we figured out she had a heart condition, 8 months later, now we're having UTIs. And now we got horseshoe kidneys. And then 1 year old, she needed glasses. And then she needed ear tubes. And it just, you know, and those are normal things, but it just seemed like as soon as we would get to a place where we thought, okay, we know what's wrong, we have the blueprint, we can move forward, we know what's going to happen, all bets were off. All bets were off. We had, you know, she was nonverbal because her vocal cord was paralyzed from the caloric surgery. She was, she also had hypoglycemia, so she had to be bolused every 2 hours. She had GERD, but they didn't want to do this. It seemed like a never-ending battle, a battle that I was ready to take on, and a battle that, you know, originally it scared me, but then started to motivate me. You know what? This is my child. I'm going to make the best decision with the information I have available and advocate for her. I was on it. I quit. Well, I worked out of my house doing sales, but actually Emily was my first job. I don't even want to call it that, but you know, it's when you have a special needs child, they're not just your child. It becomes your job. It becomes your way of life. And Emily was our monarch, so everything revolved around Emily. We didn't go anywhere unless it was with them. RSV season, we stayed home. If it was between October and March, we would go out and bring food in, but for the most part, we tried to keep her home. And we were, you know, we were protective. We were probably overprotective at times, but at the same time, we also tried to let her experience life. You know, we took her to soccer games. We took her places with us, like I said, out of RSV season. And we wanted her to experience as much normal life as we could, despite her challenges. The other situation that we had was I had a son from a previous marriage, and Jake was, I don't know how my mother calls it, getting the fuzzy into the lollipop. So, you know, because we were at the hospital with Emily, you know, and here's Jake, and he's like, hey, Mom, and you going to make dinner? And I said, no, I'm spending the night at the hospital. You know, I think Greg's going to have pizza for you. And so it was tough. It was tough because I was also trying to juggle a normal existence for Jake. I was his soccer coach, so I would spend my time basically between the hospital and coaching soccer. I don't remember really when I slept around that time, but it's very, very important to also give Jake a semblance of a normal life as well. Then, of course, I got pregnant and I had Liam. Keep in mind, up until all of this, I did everything on my own. I mean, my husband was there, but he was military, so he was gone. He was gone a lot. He was very engaged in the beginning because he was around more. But as Emily got older and his job changed and transitioned, he was gone more. So we had Emily, we had pregnant me with Liam, and then we had Jake. And so trying to juggle all those things, plus, you know, of course, not including the housework and my sales job that I had working at home, because I was I did advertising and marketing. I was contracted through a company in Connecticut. So trying to juggle all those things got to be a little much. And like every normal parent, I guess, I called my primary care provider and basically cried on the phone. I said, I'm having a nervous breakdown. I can't handle this anymore. 911, I'm done. Done. White flag. I just, you know, being pregnant and everything else, it's just too much. And Greg ended up having to go to war college down in Alabama, so he was even gone for 8 weeks out of that. So he wasn't even coming home in the evenings. So they sent a reprieve, which if you have not taken advantage of, I strongly, strongly suggest it. I was losing my mind. And with that, so Emily was losing the care that she needed. So, you know, I just needed sleep because Emily was up all night. I was pregnant, trying to get Jake to where he needed to be. So they sent a nurse. First nurse they sent I wasn't real happy with. I'll be honest with you. It took about 3 times. But their nurse ended up being Emily's second mom. She was with us for 2 years. She would come in the evenings and stay with Emily overnight. We were blessed and we were lucky. I know a lot of people don't have that. But even if you could just get a reprieve for a couple hours, whether it's to sleep or go to the grocery store, it is so vitally important. And I didn't realize how important it was until we had Amanda. And then after we had Amanda, our world had changed. And she got to know Emily, and Emily ended up being her flower girl at her wedding. And she, like I said, she became part of the family. It's always important to take care of yourself while you're taking care of your child. And your other child, and of course if you have other children, it can be overwhelming. I know it can be overwhelming. And there's times where I had to take a step back and try to figure out, where I was going, what I was doing. Okay, so Emily's got this appointment at 2, Jake has to be at soccer practice at 4, Greg comes up at 6, I got Liam, and he's got I gave birth to Liam, and he had his first appointments that I had to go to and get his shots, and because of Emily, everybody had to have their flu shots, and Emily had to have her RSV shots. So there was a lot to take in, and this whole time, here we are. I'm taking Emily to occupational therapy, taking Emily to physical therapy, and they're still trying to find out what's wrong with her. There was never really a final diagnosis. We saw geneticists, and they took blood from me and blood from my husband, and so unfortunately we never really got that blueprint, I guess, like a Down syndrome, they know what to expect, or a Turner, they know what to expect. Angelman's, we went through it all, trying to figure out what, I guess, label to put Emily on. But at the same time, I look back now that I wanted that label because I wanted that blueprint. But now when I look back, I'm glad we didn't, in some ways, because it got to a point in the hospital where they would treat all the hypoplastic left heart syndrome and all the cardiac kids. They would treat them like they were from the textbook. And I reminded them a couple times, like I said, on December 6, 2016, I grew up and actually had dialogues with doctors, not let them talk at me, but let them talk to me, and I would talk back with them. And that's a big deal. I wasn't scared of them anymore, I guess, because in the beginning I was scared. But I know at that point, like I said, I wanted to take care of my daughter and give her the best care that I possibly could. And there were, I'm embarrassed to say, there were some instances where I wasn't really liked. In fact, Dayton Children's Hospital doesn't like me, I'm sure. And it isn't that I yell at them, per se. It's that, they wouldn't work with me, I felt. And so we ended up, like I said, transferring care back to Cincinnati. And, you're going to run into the doctors, and you're going to run into nurses that you don't mesh with, personality-wise. But, I kept on, and I kept working with them. I do want to say this. It's very important to be cognizant of what's going on around your child. You get so focused directly on your child that you don't look around and see what's going on. And all these things I learned with my time with Emily. I would take notes. I went to every round. If there was something I didn't understand, okay, the internet can be your best friend or your worst enemy. But I would at least have some background information where I could go to the doctor and say, okay, this is what my understanding is. Can you clarify? Or can you help me understand and get a better grasp on the situation at hand and what's going on? There's some situations that popped up with Emily, and that's what has prompted me basically to kind of change careers. I was in advertising and marketing for 10, 15 years, and now I'm going back to school, and I'm going to be a social worker, and I'm going to work with patient advocacy and helping parents take care of their child and to make informed decisions, don't make rash decisions, and learn how to gather the information, learn how to be informed, learn how to work with the medical staff, not have them talk at you, but have an open dialogue about what's going on with your child. And be cognizant of everything that is going on around the room. And I know that sounds odd, I guess, to a point, but Emily was getting a blood transfusion, and I looked up, and her blood had been 48 hours expired. Honestly, I don't know if that's a big deal, but I caught it because I was paying attention of everything that was going on with Emily. I didn't want anything to go wrong. A nurse came in at 5:30 in the morning. I was resting on the couch, I guess, in her room, and I looked up, and the nurse was going to give Emily some medication. I said, "What? So, what are you going to give Emily? Because it's not time for her to have anything." And she said, "I'm going to give her morphine." I said, "Well, they discontinued morphine last night at 6:30 rounds, and so I'd like to get a doctor, and I really would rather you not give her that morphine because she's in renal failure." And that's what the discussion was at rounds last night. And I got my notepad, and I got the time, and I got the date, see, right here. And she goes, "Well, it's in the computer." I said, "No, I understand that, but I have it here. And so let's get Dr. Moreno and let's ask him." So Dr. Moreno happened to be down the hall, and I stuck my head out the window, and we were on a first-name basis, actually, because I had lived there for 6 months. So I put my head out the window and I said, "Hey, Brad, Dr. Moreno, come here." So he came into the room, and I wasn't trying to be mean, and said, "Hey, Nurse A, trying to give Emily morphine, and if I understand correctly, it had been discontinued the night before." And it was correct. It had been discontinued the night before. And again, important things to, as you're taking care of your child, it gets overwhelming, but take those notes, write down times if it makes you feel better. I was really bad at this. Take down who you talk to. When I had issues, it caused issues sometimes in my marriage with Greg because my notes wouldn't be that great because I would write hurriedly and I wouldn't write, and he was like, "Okay, well, what doctor did you just see? What doctor?" For the life of me, I couldn't tell. So there are some things that I wish, going back knowing what I know now, I definitely would have been a little bit more cognizant of, taking the notes and trying to involve my spouse and letting him also be more involved than he was. And it was hard because, like I said, he was gone a lot. But to let him be involved when he was able to. So like I said, it was a long road. I would definitely do it again. One thing that I felt very, very good about was the fact that we volunteered with Make-A-Wish, and we volunteered with the Children's Heart Foundation. So we tried to take Emily's ailment, I guess, or Emily's condition, and involve the family. So we would do walk to the Cincinnati Children's Hospital. We would involve Jake and later on involve Liam, and we would do things with the Children's Heart Foundation. They would have a walk, and they would have face painting. So we would be involved because this was a family. We were going through this as a family. This wasn't just me. Of course, it was me as a caretaker, but Jake now is turning 18, and he wants to be a complex care pediatrician because of what he has gone through and experienced with Emily's journey. It's like I said, I'm going to social work to help. But we were told that Emily would not have lived as long as she did if it wasn't for the care that Greg and I gave her. And that I'm very proud of. Like I said, and I wouldn't change a thing. Emily, my journey with Emily was amazing. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot of strength. Learned how to work with people a little better. I also learned how to stand up for my child, which I ended up standing up for myself because I was, growing up, I was always kind of a doormat. But until that day that Emily almost passed away on us from a mistake, that's when I said enough's enough, and I need to get serious about this and about Emily's care, or I'm going to lose her. it's all in the, I find it's all about the approach. Like I said, I've come nose to nose with a couple doctors, but at the same time, I've also opened their eyes and let them see that this isn't just a patient. This isn't just somebody laying in the bed. This isn't just some medical record you see. This is a child. This is my child. And I will do everything in my power to make sure that she is happy and that she's taken care of. And I felt that that was my job, and I still to this day, I felt that that was my job. So I'm not I'm not too sure what else to say. Phil?
Yeah. Angela, excuse me. Angela, what do you see as you were going through, some of these experiences? Is there one thing? I know you said you felt like you were the advocate and you had to take on that role. But is there any one thing that you feel like has one experience that's propelled you to want to go into this social work side of things and be an advocate for other families?
Yes. When, I don't even know how to lightly say this, when Emily was passing away, it took 4 months. She had her Fontan, her last open heart surgery, and it didn't go well. We were given a 98% success rate. And in order to kind of divert my pain a little bit, I ended up noticing that there were a lot of young families all around the pod from us with new cardiac kids. And they were drawn to me, I guess, because we had the oldest one on the floor at the time. And they started asking questions and wanted to know, okay, so what should we expect? Or can you give us some kind of something? Can you help us? Can you help us, because we have no idea and we're very, very scared. And the doctor, Emily's pediatrician, said, you need to go into advocacy because you're helping these parents realize that they need to stand up for their child. Here's a story I forgot to mention. So Emily had a seizure or a stroke, or she had something. It was on a Sunday. And they would not bring up the donut machine, the CT scan. Said, yeah, you're going to bring it up. And we kind of went back and forth about it, and they ended up bringing it up. And let me tell you, the little kid next to Emily's room, he had the same thing happen to him on a Sunday, and they ended up bringing up the machine. They didn't say that they didn't have anybody to not work it. They figured it out. So, again, all those point to me to help advocate, to help parents find their voice with their child. The other one that was really big is that you had mentioned my daughter's nonverbal. Yes, and she did know a little bit of sign. Her help was like this, even though this is a sign for help. And she had been sitting in her bed since Cincinnati Children's Hospital, and she was going, help me, help me. And I said, what's wrong? And she was hitting her arm. And I had to step out of the room because I had to go take care of a situation, and I came back. It had been 20 minutes, and she had been asking for help. She had told me she had been asking for help. Nobody was helping her. And I asked her what was wrong. Her PICC line had busted. She had been laying in her blood for 20 minutes. So, and like I said, not every hospital is perfect. But my point wasn't that the PICC line broke. My point, when I went to discuss it with the nurses and the staff, was that you need to pay attention to your patient. Just because they're nonverbal doesn't mean that they can't communicate. There's other ways to communicate. There is sign language, there's grunts, there's pointing, there's all kinds of communication. So it was because of that situation that they changed policy at Cincinnati Children's Hospital, that you talk to the patient. So instead of Emily they've just given her a shot or just draw blood or whatever, they say, hey, we're going to take blood. This is going to stick a little bit, okay? Let me, I'm saying, just hold on. and talk to her. Talk to your patients, because they are people. And it was because of some of those things I was able to implement or make them realize, I guess, or make them remember that the patients are people too. So.
Hey, Angela, another question. You and I had talked prior to today, and one of the things, we have individuals within our team members of our company that go out and they work with parents, and to the point that I think you made with me, is unless you're in the thick of this whole thing, it's really tough to understand what types of things you're going through. Would there be a couple of points that maybe you could share with our team members that go out and they do an assessment to try to help these moms or dads and their child with special needs get onto a Medicaid type format? Is there one or two things that you think would help these folks, maybe give them some insight as to what, other than some of the things you said today, other things that would give them some insight on areas that, to continue to add that empathy and compassion?
Yes, definitely empathy, compassion. And I need to say that, in my situation, when I became aggressive or when I became aggressive or hot or anything, it's because of the situation. So I want to throw in understanding. So the social workers and every case managers and everybody and the doctors, they need to be understanding to the fact that, desperate times invoke desperate behaviors, I guess. And I understand, take a step back and say, you know what, this mother, give her a couple minutes, and actually be help understanding the child's not a textbook. So there are other things that they might need. So like I said, Emily wasn't diagnosed as Down syndrome, so there were some other services that we needed. So when you look at the child, and the parents, look at holistically. Every child's not going to need the same services as every other child, and take that into consideration. But, definitely listen to the parents, listen to what their concerns are. Have them write them down. Say, my biggest concern is this, my second concern is this. Because really at the end of the day, the parents, what they want is help. They want help, and they want somebody to understand them, and they want somebody to be in their court. Because sometimes it feels like, as a parent, that everybody's against you. And it did for me. When I was in a hospital with Emily, there were times where I felt alone. It was me and her, and I basically had to get up my sword and shield and say, let's go. Because I didn't feel that I had somebody in my corner. And parents need that reassurance. They need somebody in that corner to help them. So if they have questions, help them find the answer if they can't. Bridge that, and this is what I told my husband I want to do. I want to bridge that gap between the parents and the medical community. I want to be the go-between. I want to help them find the answers they're looking for, or at least the best answers they can obtain at that time, and help them really understand the condition and what it takes to take care of their child. So.
Hey, Angela, one of the things that you also mentioned was the family dynamic for you. I know you alluded to some of the relationships with your husband, but your older son. How did that dynamic evolve over time, and how did you impact that in a positive way?
We impacted that in a positive way by doing things as a family, by involving. I never kept anything from Jake, ever. And he was a smart kid. So we would take him to the hospital, and we were honest with him. And we involved him in her care. Well, I'm saying not making decisions or something, but we involved them. We would take them to the Children's Heart Foundation walks. We would do things with them. But we also had a deal. So, when Emily was doing doing okay, when she would have a good day, then somebody would stay with Emily, and then I would take Jake, and we would go to the movies, or we would do something just for him. And the other thing, I was coaching soccer, which also kind of helped me spend some Jake time. I'm not going to lie, sometimes there was a PS3 game involved when there were lots of times in the hospital, or, time that I was unable to spend with him. But like I said, I was honest. I was honest with him and doing as much as we could as a family. Really helped out a lot. And talking with your spouse. I will have to say, Greg and I separated for 2 years after he passed away. And we're back together. We've been back together 3 years. But, it came out at that time that there were some times that he didn't feel that he was included in things. And he didn't feel that the doctors were talking to him as much as they're talking to me. And that's another thing the social workers can kind of, the case managers and stuff can kind of watch, is to make sure both parents are engaged. Because 9 out of 10, one does try to drive the bus like I did. And I regret some things that I did, because I was a little bit, didn't include Greg when he was around, because I got so used to him not being around that when he was around, I didn't take that into consideration sometimes. And so it's very, very important to include your partner, especially in the major decisions of what's going on with the child's care. So.
Well, thanks, Angela. It's your comments and everything have been awesome. We really appreciate you providing insight for everybody. Would you, is there a contact if somebody wanted to reach out to you and just kind of talk about their situation? Is there a contact, like an email or something you'd like us to share?
Yep, absolutely. It's my name, which is Angela, Angela Rather, WRATHER @live.com. I know it sounds funny, but Emily actually has a Facebook page. Feel free to check it out. A lot of her stories on there. We did a bulk of her stuff on Care Pages, which, by the way, your hospital, you can talk to your case managers or whatever, it's very, very therapeutic to blog. It's extremely therapeutic to blog, to write, to journal. So we were on Care Pages. So we did Care Pages, and then we ended up doing Facebook after it started going a little bit. But I could go back from day one of Emily's story, and I can read it. And I can read what happened, and I can read the situation, I can read what my feelings are, and I can also see how I grew. I grew emotionally, mentally, physically, how I grew from July 18th, 2006 to August 21st, 2011. I could see that transition. And it helps as a parent to reflect, because I'll be honest with you, there was multiple times I was on autopilot, and I don't remember anything. I don't remember what happened. I don't remember who I talked to. I remember nothing. But it helps because on those days I had gone back in Emily's room, and I wrote. And I wrote down what had happened. So I can look back now and see and understand Emily's story. And that's another way I've been able to help people, is through my mistakes. And sometimes not paying attention enough, and sometimes paying too much attention to details. But anyway, so her page on Facebook is Emily, Emily, and then it's Rosemarie, one word, Rosemarie, Marie, Rather, WRATHER. And her story is on Facebook with pictures and everything else. And you can get some ideas of some of my advocacy things that I had worked on her Facebook page as well.
That's awesome, Angela. Thanks for everything you shared with us today. And I want to thank all those that were in attendance and listened As Angela mentioned, if you'd like to get a hold of her, it's angela.rather, W-R-A-T-H-E-R, at live.com. I put that on the chat page here as well, and would just ask everybody, if you have additional questions, go ahead and reach out to Angela. She's, in the time that I've spent talking to her, seems to be a great resource for parents out there. Our next presentation will be